made 3 first-round picks. They went edge rusher David Bailey at 2, then added some offensive firepower with tight end Kenyon Sadiq and wideout Omar Cooper Jr. And New York holds 3 firsts next year. One of the more surprising picks, the Rams taking Bama QB Ty Simpson at 13. He was widely expected to go later into somebody with an immediate quarterback need, but LA seems to have locked up the successor to Matthew Stafford. The Cowboys had 2 picks, trading up to 11 for OSU safety Caleb Downs. Dallas also grabbed an edge rusher at 23 in Malachi Lawrence. It's a sensible focus after they had the worst scoring defense in the National Football League a year ago. And get this, the Steelers called wide receiver Mekhi Lemon to let him know he's their pick at 21. Then the Eagles swooped in, trading up to 20 to draft him. Philly struggled to contact Lemon because he was on the phone with Pittsburgh. Call waiting? He cannot wait to get to Philly.
They getting a dog. This ready to work, for real. I ain't doing no plan.
TBD whether Lemon's a dog. He's objectively an Eagle. Refrain out of Philly this offseason has been A.J. Brown is an Eagle, and for now he is, but the Eagles' moves might tip Howie Roseman's hand, signing Hollywood Brown and Elijah Moore, trading for Packers wideout Dontavian Wicks, and now trading up in the first round to take Mekhi Lemon.
Get their guy, then a trade back to get those picks back. Like, it's amazing. The Cowboys, people want to say they're always a circus, and they're not always a circus, but when they do circus, it is different from others. I mean, the fact that I said this on Get Up yesterday, I'm on the phone with Todd Archer, who covers the Cowboys for us, and he says, I got to go now. I'm pulling into the Star for this press conference. I'm sure nothing's going to happen. And then Bill Clinton shows up. Jerry Jones gets up to go talk to him, almost falls off the stage. Like, the story of the day was almost like Jerry Jones hospitalized. And then there's Stephen Jones is sitting next to an empty chair talking about how they're not going to give Pickens a long-term deal. Like, it was like you got like 3 or 4 news stories out of it, only in Dallas. But yeah, no, they're interesting because, like, everybody always likes to assume they know how they operate, but the draft is a place where they've been very disciplined and very smart, and I thought they operated that way last night. The weird part of yesterday was Pickens, it breaks, Adam Schefter reports before the draft that Pickens is going to sign his franchise tag, which that now enables the Cowboys to trade him. So initially everybody goes, oh, where is he getting traded? And he doesn't get traded. And so we're left to wonder what it all means. But yeah, they like the attention, and they're real good at getting it.
Yeah, Graz, I mean, listen, the last time the Cowboys took 2 defensive players in the first round of the draft, that was the Marcus Spears, DeMarcus Ware draft.
Were you in that class too?
Pretty good draft for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
I was in that class. Jay
Ratliff,
Marion Barber, Kevin Burnett. Yeah, pretty good draft for the Dallas Cowboys. But I do want to drill down on the George Pickens of it all. I mean, everybody is speculating on what his future will be in Dallas. We got the reports around the call between David Mulugheta, George Pickens' agents, and the Cowboys being cordial. I just wonder what it means for the 2026 Dallas Cowboys. From your purview, do you expect to see George Pickens on the field for Dallas?
I do at this point. Now, look, I mean, could they trade him? Yes. Could there come a deal that is too good for them to pass up? You know, do they get back into Max Crosby? Right? Does that make sense? So you can never rule anything out, but the fact that he signed the tender, yes, it means they can trade him, but it also means that if he doesn't show for minicamp in June, that they can fine him. So there's a world, and I know like everyone wants to assume that, Pickens won't play on the tag. There's certainly a world in which Pickens plays on the tag and is disappointed, but also this is the way it is. It's a lot of money, and I'll go do it again, and I'll show him. That would probably be the best course of action for George Pickens and his career. It's just not we make this assumption that everyone hates playing on the tag and that they'll hold out. I think when you've been told in no uncertain terms, like, look, we want to see it again. We're not going to do long-term deal. Then you have 2 ways you can go. You can sit out and pout. But I think in a case like George's, it doesn't really help him to sit out. Because, part of the reason the Cowboys are hesitant to guarantee all this money out in future years is because, Pickens comes with a little bit of a reputation that's not always 100%, locked in. So go do it again and show. If you sit out, you're kind of feeding into that. And if you go and play well again, now you've made your case. And whether it's the Cowboys or someone else this time next year, you're probably looking at that great big deal you're hoping for.
Graz, let's talk about the headline coming out of round one of the NFL draft. The LA Rams taking quarterback Ty Simpson out of Alabama last night with the 13th overall pick. This is coming off Matthew Stafford, their incumbent quarterback, having an MVP season, and the moves they made up until this point really pushing the chips in to contend this year. What was your reaction to their first round pick, number 13, being used for the future?
I had a conversation with somebody earlier in the week about the Rams, and the tenor of that was like, hey, watch the Rams, because no one really knows how they act when they have a pick this high. We haven't seen it enough, and they don't really need anything. And we know that they like Ty Simpson because, you know, that's the team that was connected with him when he announced his decision to come out. Everybody assumed that once they traded away the 29th pick, that took them out of it. So I was like, well, they wouldn't take him at 13, right? And it's, well, you know, they'd probably think about trading back, but like, would it be the craziest thing you ever heard? And so when it happened, I was like, oh yeah, they really did it. They felt like they weren't going to get anybody at 13 that was going to like make the difference for them this year. They're already great. I mean, they were pretty much a weird 2-point conversion play away from being the 1 seed in the NFC last year, and instead they lose the division to Seattle. So they feel like they're right there. I think the way to look at this is, I don't think they needed anything at 13 as much as they might potentially need a quarterback a year from now if Matthew Stafford decides that this is his last year. And if anybody would know that at this point, it would be the Rams. So obviously they're convicted on this player. Obviously Sean McVay thinks there's something here and that he can be their quarterback of the future. If he's right, then we'll look back on it and say, great pick. But in the short term, I think they'll get dinged for like, why didn't you're a win now team. Why didn't you make a win now pick? And I think, you know, what we saw last night in the first round, as it got later and like teams like the 49ers and the Bills were like, forget this round, we got no use for it. I think there just weren't a lot of players that the Rams or almost anyone else felt like were going to be real instant difference makers. And so they decided to go this way. It's a fascinating decision that I think we're going to be discussing and debating for years to come.
Graz, just to follow up on it, I want to make sure that we all have the right read on this. Are Les Snead and Sean McVay in lockstep with this pick? Because in the post-draft presser, it certainly didn't look like Sean McVay was all that too enthused about taking Ty Simpson.
Just knowing the way the Rams operate, I guarantee you that if Sean McVay was not all in on Ty Simpson, that he was not going to get picked 13th. Like I think this is, you know, if you're the Rams, you trust in Sean McVay to be your quarterback guy. And I think I think Sean is sitting there thinking like, you know, and on some level, yes, I'd like to win this next Super Bowl before Matthew Stafford's gone. And maybe we could have had somebody else that helped, but also like he's also big picture and saying we got to take care of the organization for the long term. And he obviously likes this player an awful lot. So I'm not concerned about that. I think Sean McVay, when Sean got the job with the Rams, which is like 9-10 years ago now, right? I think a lot of people thought Les Snead, who was already in place, would kind of get moved out because Sean would be the power in the organization, and he has been. But they've worked so well together and had so much success that I think we can. I think we can take it on face value that they're together on this pick. You know, Sean had to call Stafford earlier in the day and tell him this was a possibility. I don't know. I mean, it's probably not the easiest call to make, but also if Stafford's only thinking he's got one more year, then he probably gets it. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of layers to it, and maybe it was just the end of a busy day. But, yeah, the body language issue with Sean has been brought up a few places. I don't know what to make of it, but I do know the Rams aren't taking a quarterback in the first round if McVay isn't all in on that plan.
We're talking with ESPN NFL insider Dan Graziano here on Sportsmanlike live from Pittsburgh. Coverage of the NFL Draft brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors, 5 Hour Energy, ZipRecruiter, and Marriott Bonvoy. Graz, more surprising, Jeremiah Love at 3 to Arizona or Carnell Tate at 4 to Tennessee?
I think Love, I mean, even though we had an inkling that it could happen, I still think it's shocking that a team in their position would do that. And commit that amount of guaranteed money to a running back when you're not obviously ready to win. I mean, like you can make a case the 3 best teams in the NFL last year were in Arizona's division. Like they're not on the precipice of doing anything. And this is a pick you only really make if you are. Personally, I was told at the Combine that Tennessee was going to draft a wide receiver or trade out. And then I was told earlier this week that Tennessee was edge rusher or wide receiver. And so I wasn't stunned that they took Carnell Tate because I knew wide receiver was a big part of their plans. I thought maybe once Arvell Reese was there, they might go that way. I think the Titans, the Saints, and the Giants with their second pick, all made picks that said, like, hey, we drafted a quarterback last year who's now our starter, and we need to make sure he's taken care of. And I think that's probably the motivation behind this pick. Titans really, at wide receiver, have a pretty wide open depth chart.
Graz, the New York Jets made 3 first-round draft picks last night. They moved up and down a couple of times in that draft, back half of the first round. They've got 3 first-round draft picks next year. What did you make of what the Jets did on night one of this year's draft?
You know, they get their top choice at edge rusher and David Bailey. That's an easy call, right? You're going to go edge rush there. You take whoever you like the best. I mean, maybe some people would have taken Arvell Reese, but they have their scouts, they have their evaluators. Bailey's the guy they decided to go with. And then Omar Cooper at the end feels like a pretty rock-solid receiver prospect. Maybe not a super high ceiling guy, but a guy that you probably know what he's going to be and you can count on. In the middle, you take the Oregon tight end Sadiq, who's got the upside, the electric athleticism, the what could he be if he puts it all together consistently with all those physical traits he has. And there's also the downside of what if he doesn't, but if you're the Jets and you're making 3 first-round picks and you have 3 again next year and you're just loaded with picks in the next couple of years of the draft, you can afford to take a swing like that. And so I liked it. I thought that the Jets had a nice night and came out of it with two pieces that they'll probably use extensively this year, and maybe a third who could be a real difference maker given how fast he is and all the athleticism he brings.
Dan Graziano, ESPN NFL insider, reporter, analyst, and comedian yesterday on Get Up, was tremendous with his Cowboy stories. We'll be on Get Up today at 8 a.m. Eastern. Graz, always appreciate it. Thank you so much. Graz doing a tremendous job of painting the picture. Maybe he was using the Sherwin-Williams paint to do that, Smalls.
Perhaps he was, Evan. And look, in sports, the best teams know when to make their move. Sherwin